So, when you think about the India-Russia relationship, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably military hardware, right? Big energy deals? Well, what if I told you the real strength of this partnership? The stuff that's kept it going for centuries has almost nothing to do with any of that. Instead, it's all about movies, books, and this incredible shared history.
Yeah. So, beyond all the headlines about missiles and oil, what's the real glue holding this thing together? That's what we're going to dig into. We're going to uncover this hidden story, this really unique international friendship that goes back way, way before the geopolitics we see on the news today.
Okay, to really get this, you have to understand one key phrase: amity without baggage. Think about it. So many of India's relationships with Western countries are, well, they're complicated, right? There's all this history, this colonial legacy. But the connection with Russia, it started from a totally different place. It wasn't about power or conquest. It was pure curiosity.
All right, so this brings us to the main idea here. In this relationship, culture isn't just some nice-to-have, soft power thing. No way. It's actually a core piece of their strategic bond. It's like a buffer, something that can absorb all the political drama and keep the whole thing stable. And this isn't some recent development. We're talking about a story that's been unfolding for over 500 years. It all kicks off with this lone merchant way back in 1469. Then you've got this amazing meeting of minds between Tolstoy and Gandhi. Then, boom, this huge cinematic love affair in the Soviet era. And now, it's all coming back in a big way.
So, let's go way back to the very beginning. The first real contact we have on record is from a Russian merchant, a guy named Afanasy Nikitin. And get this, he landed in India decades before the big European sea powers even showed up. His journey, his whole perspective, really set the tone for the next 500 years. And here's what's so incredible about Nikitin's story. Just listen to what he wrote. Altogether, there are 84 faiths in India, and everyone believes in God. People of different faiths do not eat or drink together, nor do they intermarry. See, he's not writing like a conqueror. He's just watching. He's an observer, totally fascinated by this complex society. And his writings gave Russia its very first look at India, not as a prize to be won, but as this amazing, diverse land.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit to the 20th century. This is when that early curiosity just explodes into something much bigger. A deep connection built on philosophy, books, and movies. This is really where the bond gets cemented in the hearts and minds of millions of people. And you see this amazing meeting of the minds between two giants, Tolstoy and Gandhi. So you've got Leo Tolstoy, all the way over in Russia, writing that the key to India's freedom wasn't a violent uprising. Instead, he said, it was to just refuse to cooperate with the colonial system. And then Gandhi reads this, and it's like a light bulb goes off. It confirms everything he's thinking about nonviolent resistance, or satyagraha. He even called Tolstoy the greatest apostle of nonviolence. I mean, what a connection, right? It literally shaped history. Then we hit the Soviet era, and this is where things just go into overdrive. The cultural connection doesn't just grow, it absolutely explodes. The Soviet Union basically created this unprecedented two-way cultural highway between the two countries. It was probably one of the most effective cultural outreach programs ever.
And a huge part of this was the flood of Soviet books into India. I mean, they were everywhere, sold by street vendors for next to nothing. But here's the thing, they weren't cheap junk. They were high quality with amazing illustrations. You could get everything from science textbooks to literary classics, and this is the really important part, they were translated into a ton of local Indian languages like Hindi, Bengali, Malayalam. For a couple of generations, these books were just a staple in Indian homes. They weren't just for reading, they literally shaped how people saw the world.
So while Soviet books were a huge deal in India, something just as big was happening in the other direction. Indian cinema was completely captivating the Soviet Union. And if you need proof, just look at this one number, 64 million. Just let that sink in for a second.
What was that number for? It was the number of tickets sold for a single Indian film, Raj Kapoor's Awara. It was a total sensation. Raj Kapoor basically became a demigod there. I mean, there's this amazing story that when he visited Moscow, the fans were so wild they literally lifted his taxi and carried it on their shoulders through the streets. That's not just a cute story. That shows you the deep, deep emotional bond that was forming. His songs were sung everywhere.
Okay, so that's the amazing backstory. But what about today? I mean, after the Soviet Union collapsed, things got a little quieter. But now, we're seeing this major comeback, a modern renaissance of that friendship, and is being driven by what's happening in the world right now.
And one of the clearest signs of this is something you might not expect. It's happening in education. See, in 2024, there was this dramatic shift in where Indian students were choosing to go to study abroad.
Yeah, just look at these numbers. On the one hand, a super popular destination like Canada saw a huge 41% drop in Indian students. But Russia? It saw a surge of nearly 34%. That's not a coincidence. It's happening because Russia is seen as a stable, affordable, and welcoming place to go. And that reputation is built on all that history we just talked about.
And it's not just about students either. Both governments are pouring energy into revitalizing these people-to-people connections. You've got huge festivals, like Summer in Moscow. The India Day Festival can pull in up to 2 million people. Plus, India is now offering free 30-day visas for Russian tourists, and they're translating modern Indian books into Russian. They're really trying to keep that cultural conversation going.
So, let's tie this all together. Why does any of this matter? In the tough, real world of global politics, why should we care about a 500-year-old friendship? Well, because it's become this incredibly important strategic bedrock.
And that brings us to the final big idea, thinking of this culture as a geopolitical shock absorber. When things get rocky, a political disagreement, a deal that goes sideways, this huge reserve of public goodwill is there to cushion the blow. The shared memory of Raj Kapoor's movies or all those Russian books, that creates a type of trust that you just can't manufacture with a political treaty. It's earned over centuries.
Which leaves us with one last question to think about. In a world that feels like it's fracturing more and more every day, could it be that the ultimate strategic asset isn't a new missile system or an economic deal, but a 500-year-old friendship?